Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Between Sessions with Berries. We have a very interesting guest today. She's got so many cool things cooking. I could barely decide what to even talk about with her because there's so many things that we could touch on today. But I want to introduce you to Lucy Orton. She's a therapist and a coach who's built a beautifully intentional, spacious practice focused on deep healing. She specializes in intensives using IFS, Brainspotting, and RLT, which is Relational Life Therapy, working with both individuals and couples, especially high-achieving and neurodivergent clients who are ready to do powerful internal work without the limitations of traditional weekly therapy models. She also supports corporate clients and expats, running a global practice that's centered on alignment, sustainability, and genuine transformation. This conversation is for anyone who's ready to reimagine how therapy can look and feel when it's built around you. Lucy, welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. I just want to dive into all of these little pieces, but I would love if you could introduce yourself and let us know what has led you to this path with such a unique model that you're using right now with your therapy clients.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for having me on. And I'm really excited to be here and chatting to you again, Kim. So much has led me to this point. I think there's a few things. There's where I've come from professionally, where I've come from in my personal life. That means I live abroad and I work with global clients, that kind of thing. So on the professional side, I began as a coach and I used to work with entrepreneurs a lot. And then I moved into working with corporates and I loved that work. And I found that the more I worked with these incredibly hardworking, incredibly dedicated to the coaching process clients, I realized that there was a lot of deeper healing that needed to go into the work and that they needed often, if not always, at least some element of a therapeutic approach. In my view, all the clients I attracted definitely seemed to. So that really led me down the avenue of training as a counselor and then training up in IFS, internal family systems, which changed my world. And then latterly Brainspotting and most recently Relational Life Therapy for couples. So all of those kind of elements led me to create it alongside the corporate work, which is a big part of my business, my private practice strand. And I love both equally. So I'm really lucky to balance both. Yeah. And also because I live internationally, because I'm British, working in Southeast Asia with an Australian counselling qualification in time zones that work really well with the US. I have a lot of people around the world that I'm working with in different kind of strands. And yet there's at the core this real congruence with the modalities that I adore and the types of clients that I work with who are high achieving, they're expats, they're neurodivergent. They kind of come to me ready to do something pretty deep. So that's my journey kind of in terms of how I've set up my practice more broadly. Do you want me to talk about the intensives kind of separately?
Yeah, we could totally dive into that. I just think it's so interesting. And I want to note that you are British, like you said, you're not from the United States. So you have a completely different model than a lot of the therapists probably listening to this podcast, because most are from the United States and start out as therapists and then they decide they want to branch into the coaching world. But you had the ability to do it differently because you're not restricted by licensing boards like we are here in the United States. So I think that's so interesting that you went from coach to now I want to become a counselor and get certified in all this stuff and expand my work deeper. We all know coaching, at least for us in the United States, it's limited. We don't want to touch on anything that's therapy related because that's dipping into a world that's regulated and licensed and all that stuff. So I just think that's so interesting that you came about it that way and decided to go deeper with it. Yeah, it's really cool.
I'm so back to front with it. And it kind of has strengths and challenges coming at it from that angle. I think the strengths are my money mindset is stronger because I began charging high rates as a coach. There still has been some wobbles as I suddenly realized, I mean, particularly if I look at the UK or the Australian model, the low rates therapists charge are really, really bad, especially compared to the US. But I've done a lot of work on that and I feel like I've brought the two models together in terms of where my money mindset goes. So that's great. But yeah, the difference between working as a coach and working as in a therapeutic way, for me, I feel very lucky that I don't have to demarcate it like the US therapists have to. I'm still incredibly ethical about it and I'm clear about things. And for example, if I'm working with couples in the US, I do tend to do that as a coach because for relationship work, it is more coaching. It is more psychoeducation. But then I might segue into doing individual work as part of that, which will be then very therapeutic. So I feel ethically okay about it because I know I have all the training, all the qualifications, but I come from a different model. And sometimes there's a little education piece there, actually less so with clients and sometimes more so with fellow clinicians. I think a lot of US clinicians, and understandably so, don't realize this different model outside, which means that I am not hurting my Australian registration by working with someone in any state in the US. And that is different. I think it will become more common knowledge as more and more clinicians do things that you're advocating for, working overseas and traveling and understanding the nuance. And there are some places where I wouldn't work therapeutically. So for example, like Germany and Italy seems like a different kettle of fish to me, with quite a lot of difficulties. And for me, I don't need those markets, but there are ways that I do things that are kind of keeping things clear, keeping things ethical. And I am appreciative of the flexibility that my registration and my skill set offers me.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's just so interesting. I'm thinking of all these things we could talk about with this. It's, a lot of US therapists don't even realize that they can go outside of their licensure and see clients like expats in other countries and not even have to worry about the licensure regulations. In a lot of countries that they're doing it that way instead of the other way around, working internationally and coming back into the US, they're still regulated, but a lot of therapists don't realize they can do it the other way. So like you're saying, there's a lot of expansion and room to grow that maybe a lot of US therapists don't even realize they can do. So it's super interesting. We could probably talk about that for like 3 hours.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it kind of goes back to that mindset piece. When you're a coach, you're like, well, the world's open to me. I think with therapy across borders, there's more of a maybe a helper kind of burden on therapists in general, and rightfully more of an ethical kind of heaviness to some of the work. And at the same time, there are ways that you can marry those two things together without causing an ethical or a licensure problem. So it's very, very interesting. Yeah,
it really is. So let's talk about your intensives model. So you're working with like neurodivergent people, couples too. And then overachievers, high achievers, like in the corporate setting. I feel like this intensive model probably speaks really well to them because it's like, hey, I don't want to do that normal model. And also I'm a high achiever. So I just want to get in and get out and get it done. I would imagine it works really well with that population.
It really appeals.
That.
Yeah, totally. It really appeals. So there's been a couple of things with that. It's kind of been chicken and egg with me with intensives. It was kind of one of those examples where the clients bring it to you and you're like, nice, this is what we need to do.
I need to build this. Yeah,
I need to build this. And that they want longer sessions or they need them. The modalities that I use as well really lend themselves to a longer period of time, whether that's IFS or Brainspotting, because it is that deeper processing and that deeper healing for individuals, or whether it's RLT for couples, which is like, there's a psychoeducation piece. Then we need time to work with each couple. 60 minutes is not going to cut it with a 50 minutes is certainly not going to cut it with a couple. We won't even get to the crux of what's going on, let alone have time to deal with each of the partners. So the modalities really indicated that intensives were important. And as you say, the client groups demanded it. They didn't know, but it became clear that that's what they needed. So yes, I have people who are high achievers who just want to get this job done. And then I also have clients who are neurodivergent, who have very busy, active, fantastic minds. I'm almost certainly one of them.
Yeah, same.
It takes them a little while to get to what's really going on because there's a lot of clutter or there's a lot of intensity. And having that intensive model to say to people, you have time. You have time to go around the houses and work this out verbally and cognitively. And you have time to do some deep healing. It's not either or. It really is like both of those elements can come true in an intensive. And I guess in terms of an intensive, I used to think an intensive was kind of 90 minutes plus. But for me now, 2 hours plus for a session is what really gives the beauty. And for many people, I'll do 3 hours, 4 hours in a block, maybe, 9, 12 hours across a number of days. But as long as it's 2 hours plus, for me, that's where the magic happens in terms of letting our system settle. And with IFS, we work with protectors. So when those protectors trust, then we find out more. But sometimes they need more than 47 minutes to trust us. They need the full hour and 10. And then great, we've got another 40 minutes or another hour and 40 to really see what those parts want to tell us.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So interesting. So even in this population, it doesn't sound like you would be too rigid with your intensive structure. So maybe one person might just need a 2.5 hour, or maybe somebody else might need the 2.5 or a 4 hour over like 6 weeks or something like that, just depending on how deep they go with that and having that flexibility. Is that sort of your model? And I know you talk about spaciousness, so I'm wondering if that like plays into that.
Definitely. I'm so keen to be bespoke. And that is sometimes a challenge when I'm kind of thinking about my scheduling. But I work my weeks so that I can do that. And especially because I work across time zones, I can allow for that. And I also allow for spaciousness for myself. So for example, if I have a client, they say, I want to see you 3 hours a day for 3 days in 3 weeks' time, on this week.
Yeah.
Then I kind of mirror block some time after it or before it, depending on their time zone, for me to, have time to relax, for me to have time to think, for me to have time to remind myself of their notes from the day before. And I try not to, when I'm in a really deep intensive period like that, have too many other distractions, because I think A, they're paying for a premium price, and B, I want to be more fully present with them for that period of time. So that definitely kind of factors into how I think about it with scheduling. But yeah, sometimes I would say the majority of my intensive clients, it is more of a kind of 9-ish hours with some bookended sessions over a period of about 7 to 10 days. Not maybe every single day, but a couple of days, then a gap, and then a couple of days. That's my most popular package. And then sometimes I have some really interesting intensives where people have said, I want to gift my husband a 2.5 hour intensive to work on X, something quite manageable. Or I'm preparing for something. And like you said, I want to do an intensive every week for the next 6 weeks before my wedding, or before this big transition, before I'm an empty nester, before my next life change, whatever. And so we do a more kind of hybrid between the weekly session and the intensive model.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's just so interesting. And it's just great that you could just be creative with it. And build it out how you want to. Yeah. So another really cool thing, you do the intensives, but then you do this other really cool thing that I want to talk a little bit about, and that's working with corporate work. Like corporations hire you to implement and give packages and services to their employees. I would love to talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you get into that? Because I think therapists listening, they're always looking for different paths or non-traditional type. They don't want to do the 50-minute hour with 10 clients a day. So could we talk about the corporate piece and how you got involved in it, and how do you work those contracts? I just think that's so interesting, and I think people would really love to hear that too.
Yeah, I really love this side of my business, and it is different. It's kind of an area that certainly it has a different approach from being a coach, and it has a different approach from a therapist. So it's somewhat quite different in how you garner those clients and those results. So yeah, it is different, but I love it. So I would say I first came into this area by working with a business coach called Jessica Lorimer. Lorimer, and she's an amazing British coach who works with all sorts of people, like nutritionists, therapists, coaches, not enough therapists, I would say, coaches, communications experts, public speaking experts, like racial diversity experts. And she helps them take individual packages into corporate. So her model totally works for therapists, because you've already got the skills, you've already got the business. Here's how you approach and work with organizations. And she is a complete expert in this, complete expert in how you liaise with those organizations. So she taught me a lot. So for example, the things that I use for outreach for corporates are running executive roundtables, getting to know people through networking, cold email outreach, and sometimes cold LinkedIn outreach, not in a spammy way, just in a very like, hello, I'm an expert on this. Does your business have a need for X, which will help your business with Y? And the Y is usually something like retention, productivity, profitability. So it's not things like, do you want to make your people happy? It's actually like hardcore business.
You want like bottom line, how's this going to make your business get stronger? Yeah.
It's not like, do you want your people to feel really fluffy? Because they do-ish, but like, they're pressured, their budgets are pressured. So you approach it like this. So I now have a lot of contacts within different organizations. I have a focus on tech and creative. And then I go to them, and sometimes it's a really slow process, and sometimes it's quick, or sometimes it's really long-standing clients, and then they buy from you again and again. But I love it. And you write proposals, you talk to them, you have a conversation, like a stakeholder conversation, and they say to you, in head of HR or something, or head of people, what are the issues you're dealing with? And they say, oh, we've got this middle management tier that's like super stressed out. And you say, okay, can I do some lunch and learns? Do you need executive coaching? Do you need a program for whatever? And one of my most popular programs that I've run several years in a row is quite a nice indicator. So I work with returning parents, and I coach mostly returning mums, but also returning dads on that transition piece. Like, it's an Australian company, so they're coming back from like 6 months to a year of maternity leave. Their confidence is low. They're worried about how they're going to fit in, and have different programs with different forms of one-to-one coaching, video content, group coaching, that kind of thing. And those programs are fantastic. It takes a while to set it up, but once it's set up, it could be several clients a week for me for a year. That's what I love about the corporate projects. You get to make quite a big impact with these projects. It would take me a month of Sundays to suddenly find 100 clients. Well, we find eventually, but they just kind of present them to you, and you're on a bit of a sort of a roster with that company, and they come back to you for things, or events, like things like workshops, things like I've done mediation between founders who are struggling to kind of work things out. And there's so many ways that our therapy skills and coaching skills, either one, can be utilized for corporations. So I kind of encourage anyone to think about, like, oh, what's the area you really love? Is it, for example, vicarious trauma? And then how could you go into an industry, it's really good to specialize, and help them with vicarious trauma with their team. So actually, my sister-in-law randomly told me last week that she's a vet nurse, and she had a vicarious trauma workshop in her small vet company practice thing. Like, I don't know, she works for like an animal charity. And I said to her, oh, wow, that's amazing. How did that come about? And she said, oh, it was the partner of someone within the company. And I was like, oh, fine. But that's what is quite random. There are lots of these needs, and people are not being approached to say, hey, company that does this, would you be interested in vicarious trauma training? I'm an expert in it. And maybe 9 out of 10 people will say no, or won't reply, or say we don't need that. But 1 out of 10 will say yes. And then you've got a workshop to present, prepare, and so on. So does that answer your question? I feel like I've really rambled.
Oh, it's amazing. It's so interesting. It just brings up so many more questions. And before we hit record, we were even talking about like the use of AI and everything. And I was just thinking, like, you could even use AI as like ChatGPT to help you like figure out a really good niche for different corporations. You could be like, okay, I'm a therapist. I do this, this, and this. Like, what would be the best corporations for me to try to do this intro letter and try to get in? And what should I train them on? What would be a good thing that would fit with that company? So you just got my mind going around, oh my gosh, you could totally do that, and then price it out. And
I use ChatGPT for that side all the time.
Yeah.
And I'll use it as like a business partner, really. Like, oh, I got this email from the stakeholder. Do you remember that proposal, ChatGPT, that we wrote on this? Like, I got an email from them. It said this. They want to renegotiate. How do you recommend I create the next email? And then they'll create the email, and then I will do a proposal, which used to take me maybe 2 to 3 hours. I think now it takes me an hour, because ChatGPT writes the bits that need to change. Oh, I wrote this for another one, but now it needs to be about this. This has changed, and the price is this. And then it's so fresh and so quick.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Sometimes I disagree with it, but a lot of the time I'll be like, no, that hits the mark. Or actually, I know this person quite well, so maybe make it less formal, ask them about their kids or whatever. Or actually, this is a cold email, really, really polite. That's been super helpful for me, ChatGPT, with my corporate side of work.
I love that so much. Oh my gosh. And the corporations you work with, they're mostly like Silicon Valley, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
In the States, it's Silicon Valley and tech companies. And in Australia, it's tech and creative agencies like marketing and advertising. Because my background, way back in the day, straight out of university, was working in an advertising agency. So I have a kind of lot of low-hanging fruit contacts there, which is where I started out. Yeah. But so tech, Silicon Valley, and marketing and advertising. There's a lot of crossover between those industries as well. A lot of people jump ship and go between the creative and So there's a lot of my contacts who are in Silicon Valley actually worked with me in branding when I worked in San Francisco. So there's a lot of links.
Yeah. And I like the idea of it being Silicon Valley, because I feel like you could probably charge more than maybe some little company somewhere. I like that you're going like big with it. I mean, I feel you could really do some premium rates there. And that's
100%.
Touchy subject with therapists, especially in the United States. We're not supposed to make a lot of money, or it's shameful to ask for a lot of money, but I could see that you could really price these things like really premium
Yeah, you actually should, because I've seen things in some of the like Facebook therapy groups, which have been really interesting, where people have said, I've been offered this opportunity, probably through like my sister-in-law's thing, someone's connected them to go in and speak to this organization of surveyors, or I don't know, making it up, engineers, about some topic that we would have expertise on. And they say, should I charge 2 hours of my hourly rate? And I'm like, no, you're going to look bad to that company. You're going to look like you've never done this before, because they're going to be expecting an extra zero on the end of that fee. So even though we can feel really difficult about it, it's worth looking into how you sell to corporates, looking at someone like Jessica Lorimer and seeing what's going on, because you will present yourself erroneously by being kind, and they'll think, oh, maybe they're not so great.
Yeah, it's like, what? 150? This should be like 15,000.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I would say it depends on the company, and they often will argue you down. So there's a much more of a negotiation going on, and I feel good about that. I don't really negotiate much with private clients, but I will happily negotiate with corporates, because I realize it's a different ball game. And we're talking about bigger numbers, and often they can give volume discounts and things. Like, oh, you've worked with me for 3 years. Yep, let's do this. Or there's going to be 100 people instead of 10. Now that means that, it's a different figure. But by going in too short, you could actually end up losing the whole thing and losing your chance to impact. So you have to be really brave with your pricing, and it massively pays off. So for example, I would say I have to translate it into US, but a typical workshop might be $5,000 is not much for a 1.5 hour workshop.
Yeah.
And that might take you a year or 2 years in relationship building. So you're not going to get that every single time. But then if you get a really good relationship and they want 10 workshops, then you're talking about a really great package and a really good paydays.
It's like, oh, you paid $5,000 for one. Let's see, if I do 10 for you over 2 years, let's go 30,000 or what?
Exactly. And it makes sense. The value that you're offering them is huge, because if you save them someone leaving, the returning parents one, if you save them someone leaving because they felt unsupported, then they're not paying $40,000 to recruit someone else or more. Plus, they're not losing the intellectual property of that awesome woman, say, who didn't come back because she felt like there wasn't support in place. The value to them, as long as you can explain that to their bottom line, is again where the sort of the beauty is to the corporation, because they're not so interested in the fluffy side, but they are very interested in what it means for the longevity of that organization and how well it's doing.
Their bottom line. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Pricing is such a thing. Even in what I do, I have partnership deals and all that stuff. And it took me a long time to figure out, like, wait a minute, these companies have plenty of money. They're not even going to blink at this. They make millions a month. They don't care. Ask for it. The worst thing is they're going to say no or negotiate or say, actually, our budget is only this much.
And what's interesting is actually, before I said I will negotiate with corporates, but often the negotiation isn't, I'm going to make it cheaper. It's, okay, I'll do slightly less. And if your budget is this, then I'm going to do slightly less, and the product's going to be slightly different. And it's not antagonistic way. They understand. And they will often come to me and say things like, we've got a bit of a budgeting issue. We can only afford X. So how about we take off this bit? And I'll be like, sure, we can take off that bit. We can add on this extra little bit. And then that kind of makes it a nice negotiation. But oftentimes it's not about reducing. It's about really finding out what they need and what they're prepared to pay for and they have the budget for, and finding that sweet spot. It's a real skill. And as you say, a drop in the ocean, a company paying $5,000 to you to go in and really galvanize their staff on a lunch and learn is nothing to some of these companies. And actually, maybe I still need to do work on that, because I might be talking to some companies, particularly in Silicon Valley, where 5,000 is way off, like actually they're like, whoa, what's wrong with you? Why are you not like keynote speaker level? $25,000. That's a keynote speaker level. So
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so interesting. Yeah. And I'm sure people listening, it just brings up so many money mindset type issues. Am I worth it? And
you have to have done the work.
All of that. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. In fact, that's so funny that you mentioned imposter syndrome, because one of my main areas for corporates is imposter syndrome.
Oh, I love it.
So like talking to them about imposter syndrome. And you have to kind of have done some work on this. I think we've talked in the past, maybe, or I think Tiffany McLean, like her work, the money sessions is brilliant for this. It's brilliant for the private practice side, but it also segues into the corporate side. And I do think that was one of the benefits I had. I came from that background of I'd had to push push through saying some scary numbers to some people. I would
Yeah.
argue it's easier to say scary numbers to people who are working a job and the money's not theirs. I think it's easier to be brave in corporate. But, equally, it's important for the private practice too, if you want to have a sustainable life, a sustainable retirement,
true.
if you want to pay for all these expensive certifications. And I'm about to embark on a PhD. We invest a huge amount of money into our work and our training and our skill, way more than many other sectors. On a personal level, we absolutely deserve that old adage of you going and kind of knowing which wire to cut, the electrician knowing which wire to cut. And it's like he didn't just cut one wire, he knew not to cut the other 160, wires that would have blown up the place. It's that. And we have all of that in our world, and we have to just remember it at the time when we're saying these bigger numbers.
I love that analogy. It's so good. Right. So shifting a little bit, you're working in Silicon Valley in the tech sector, all of that. So let's talk about AI just a little bit. Bring it up since Barry's. We're all about AI. We love AI. We love using it to make our lives easier. So what are you seeing trending with that in your work, maybe in the intensives or the corporate setting and your proposals to them and all of that stuff? What are you seeing AI coming up with, or how it's showing up in your work that you're doing? Yeah.
Well, for me personally, it's just becoming more and more a big part of my world. And it becomes really, it feels like a right-hand man for me personally and how I run my business, right-hand woman. I love it for me personally. I have concerns about the ethical sustainability and all of that kind of stuff. But I also think it's a bit like the nascent internet. We had to kind of just go with that. It's the world has shifted. It doesn't matter. We have to work with it and, lobby for, I don't know, better cooling systems or whatever it is. So on a personal level, I love it. In terms of how I'm kind of presenting it to clients. So with my private clients, I am talking to them actually about berries because I think it creates these fantastic reports.
Yes.
And so far, no one has taken me up on it, but I know it's coming because I've had clients in the past who would have loved a kind of berries deep version of their intensive that they could read in years to come. So that side of it, I think, is super exciting. And then for the corporate side, I'm really seeing so many iterations. We briefly mentioned off camera, but I've got this new potential package, the one that I mentioned about returning parents, and they have had some budgeting issues. So they've gone down to just me doing 2 sessions per returner, which is still great for me and I think lovely for the returners. And I've been thinking recently, wouldn't it be great if I give them something really actionable to take away, as well as like maybe one of my workbooks or something, but I could give them something that's listened to our coaching sessions and that has given them then action points or real précis of what they experienced. So one of the things I'm planning on doing is offering that as a sort of add-on and as an exceeding expectations thing, which I think will help me gain more business. It'll help the clients get better experience and it helps me gain more business. So I really feel like AI has that ability to offer us both ends, the better client care and better for our business. AI is coming for us or whatever in terms of the therapy space. So we have to use it in the ways that we can to really make us extra, us the real kind of premium option, because we integrate both. We have the humanity and we have the AI kind of prowess and snazziness.
Absolutely. We were talking about this off camera too, like berries and that functionality it has where you can use the AI system right inside of it, where it's reading all of the client's information at the same time. And then you're interacting with the bot and you can have it write these really robust reports like you're talking about and give future recommendations, interventions that you want them to do outside of session. Like it can just do all of that so quickly. The time saving for us. And then it does feel like a premium experience, especially intensives, right? It's like a 2.5 hour session. Barry's can record up to that long. And then being able to condense it into a report in like 3 seconds for the clinician is next level. And then to be able to say, look at this amazing summary of all the work we just did together. And here's future recommendations. And then if you want to work on this, this, and this later, hit me up for another package. It can even do that sort of stuff, which is really exciting for me just from a business perspective, being able to set premium rates or like give this add-on package for future recommendations. It's mind-blowing the stuff you can do with these AI reports that come out of these sessions. It's incredible. Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think it's really exciting to me on a couple of levels. That one is it's going to free up time, which I'm all about. As a therapist, I want to work in this business, this area, this field for the next 20, 30 years. I don't really want to retire. I just want to work smarter. So I want to be really sustainable in how I approach it. And I want to be spacious and healthy in how I work in this area. So anything that frees up time is massive tick for me.
Yeah.
But the second thing for like the fears around AI, something like berries and the reports is amazing because we are going to be there too. We're right next door. We're not doing this on our own. It's not running amok. It's got that clinician berries kind of collaboration thing. And I think products like that can really give that security and that safety are going to be very, very in demand because they've got the humanity, as I said, and they've got the skill set that gives the clinician that edge. And just think it's a really good partnership in different ways. And the potentiality is great.
Yeah, it's incredible. It just blows my mind. And we've got really cool features coming too. We thought about, and this is just between us just chatting about creating a bot version, like a twin of ourselves, because Barry's is going to understand our clinical work, our style, and how we think and everything, and being able to have like a twin version of us inside of Barry's that our clients could potentially interact with later down the road, like if we're not available, or adding that on as a premium service. All this is coming, and it's just super interesting to think about the different ways we can use AI in our practices and with our clients. But anyway, that's a whole other topic probably.
Yeah, well, I have a random thought on that as well, which was I saw this article and it was about where are the humanities going in an AI world, right? And I don't know if you read it. I can't remember where it was. Anyway, but one of the things it was saying is going to be huge is philosophy. So because ethics and philosophy is something that we need. We're the guardians of that, humans. And I think this is like a sort of analogy for that. We're still the guardians as therapists, but we can work with it to make it really awesome. We can work with AI to make it more ethical, make it more educated. And something like Berries, because it's got this insane brain sphere of therapists, is going to end up being really, really interesting and really probably very conscientious, very ethical because of the people that are inputting into it. You know, it's kind of the opposite of the manosphere. Or I shouldn't say that.
I love it. It's so interesting to me. It's just amazing. I don't know where we're going to be in 10 years, but it just blows my mind every time I think of the possibilities and everything we can do with all of this. But anyway, this has been an amazing conversation. I would love to just have you tell everybody how they reach out to you, how they work with you, if they want to consult with you about around this corporate stuff or anything. I'd love for you to share how they could talk to you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you. Oh, it's been lovely to just have all these great conversations with you and get to think about this stuff. I think it's just so fascinating as well. If you want to get in contact with me, firstly, if you have a couple clients to send my way or you want to have a conversation, you have a couple that would like to do an intensive, something along those lines, couplesawaken.com is the best place to go, and you can fill out a form and connect with me there. And you can connect with me there, whatever, I'll get it. So like if you forget the next thing I'm about, so don't worry. If you are wanting to talk about corporate work or you're wanting to have a consult on that or any of the other things I've mentioned, you can also go to lucyorton.com and again, fill out forms. They all come to me. Either way, it doesn't matter. But those are the two best ways. I don't really use social media, which I love.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good for you.
I know. It just isn't in either of my business plans. I love that I don't have to do that. However, I am also on LinkedIn and a little bit active on there, but not massively. So LinkedIn's another good place to find me. And yeah, just in terms of the kind of areas that, we've talked about intensive couples work and corporates are like the mainstays of my practice. And yeah, I'm about to embark on a doctorate in sexology. So I've got loads of things up my sleeve. I might also be doing a podcast on couples work, but it's all in the balance. I'm a bit like you, Kim. I have so many ideas and I have to kind of rein myself in. But I would love to connect with anybody who is interested in any of the above. And yeah, it's just been brilliant to have this conversation around AI and around therapy and coaching. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing everything. It was wonderful.